بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. We greet you on this the 25th day of the blessed month of Ramadan with Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and with the news that the Jews, or the portion of the Quran to be recited on the 25th day in order to complete the recitation of the whole Quran in the blessed month of Ramadan. The Jews of the 25th day commences with Surah Al-Hashr and it ends with Surah Al-Qalam. Now then, we have been introducing, particularly to our Christian brothers and sisters, but also for the Muslims, the subject of the Antichrist, or Dajjal, the false Messiah. And we have been giving you some of his footprints. Last night yesterday we gave you one of his major footprints. Our Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, prophesied. He said that the last people to come out of Dajjal will be women. If you don't ponder over that and reflect over that statement, and then look and see how it connects to the world today, you're just whistling in the wind. He said the last people to come out of Dajjal will be women. Well, they have come out already. Yes, son, you're still waiting for Dajjal. They have come out already. And when they come out, he said a man would have to return to his home and tie down. Yani would coercively restrain his wife, his sister, his daughter, etc., to protect them from being seduced by Dajjal. This is already taking place in the world. And this indicates that there's going to be, from Dajjal, a feminist revolution. And that did come to the world from Britain. The first stage of the three parts of this Antichrist, where he is the shadow. The feminist revolution, in which the night wants to become the night wants to become day, and so women will assume the functional role of men in society, and they'll do this with a gusto, and they'll do this with enthusiasm, and they'll do this with determination that they are on the right path. Now that is deception. Oh, that is brainwashing. And women will dress like men in order to assume the functional role of men in society. But with with the feminist revolution also comes a sexual revolution, in which women will be dressed and yet naked. And Allah created women beautiful for men. Women were created for men, and men were created for women. And these two are inseparable. And the attraction between men and women must not diminish. Because once that attraction is diminished, you can find that mankind, the continuation of mankind on earth can be finished. No more babies. Once that attraction is finished, you can have homosexuality and lesbianism. So you want to preserve that attraction between the male and female. And in order for that attraction to be preserved with intensity, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَى, the night must be covered and shrouded. So a woman's body is covered, because a woman's body is like the night which is shrouded. And when you take off the covering, eventually the attraction will diminish. It's not so difficult to understand. Tonight we want to turn excuse me, I've been receiving 100 different recipes for this cough, but I'm accustomed, when the cough comes for the last 20-30 years, it comes and it stays for a long time, and then it goes by itself. Tonight we want to turn to an astonishing thing connected with the Antichrist, or Dajjal. It is a prophecy of Prophet Muhammad Allah's blessing be upon him. And you'll find it in this book, Constantinople, in the Quran. Look out, Greece. I'm coming, inshallah. And this book has been translated to Greek. And we're going to be launching this book, inshallah, in Athens, inshallah. Now here is what our Prophet said. Abu Huraira reported, Abu Huraira is one of the companions of the Prophet, that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, "You have heard about a city, janibun minhu fil bahr." Sorry. You have heard about a city that one side of the city is by the sea and the other side of the city adjoins the land. Janibun minha, fil bahr, wa janibun minha fil bar. One side of the city is by the sea and the other side adjoins the land. They said, "O Messenger of Allah, yes, we heard about it," because they knew it is Constantinople. He then said, "The last hour will not come until 70,000 persons from Banu Ishaq," remember they are no longer called Banu Israel, after they moved from the Holy Land to Egypt. They're no longer called Banu Israel, or the Israelite people. Now they're called Banu... Sorry, it is after they moved... Sorry, confused tonight. It is after they moved from the Holy Land to Egypt. Now they're called Banu Israel, because the name of Yaqub alayhi salam is changed to Israel. But then after the attempt at crucifixion, now the name Banu Israel is no longer used, and now they are known as Ahlul Kitab, that part of Banu Israel which accepted the Messiah, and they wept when they saw him crucified before their very eyes. Of course, he was not crucified, but they didn't know that. These are now called Banu Ishaq. So 70,000 of them, these are Christians, would attack the city, and they would land there, and they would not have to fight with weapons, no arrows, but all they say is, "There is no God but the one God, and He is the greatest." And one side of the city would fall, and then they'll repeat it, and the second side will fall, and then they'll repeat it, and the third side will fall. And then the gates of the city will be opened for them. And when they enter therein and they're collecting the spoils of war and distributing them amongst themselves, a noise will be heard saying, a voice will be heard saying, "Verily, Dajjal has entered amongst you." And they will leave everything and go back now to protect themselves from Dajjal. That's it. This is the hadith, the prophecy concerning Constantinople. We want to leave that hadith now and go to the Quran. And it is in Surah Al-A'raf. And in Surah Al-A'raf, this is what Allah says. "Ba'adawzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. وَاسْأَلْهُمْ عَنِ الْقَرْيَةِ الَّتِي كَانَتْ حَاضِرَةَ الْبَحْرِ." He again speaks about the city by the sea. And he said, ask them about that city. And in this city lived a people who were obliged to obey the law of the Sabbath. This is the Christian people who were Israelite people, yes. They were obliged to obey the law of the Sabbath. And the law of the Sabbath is that on the day of the Sabbath, which is after the first 6 days of the week begins on the first day and continues until Yawmul Jum'ah, which is the 5th day or you call it Friday today, and then the sixth day, Juma is the sixth day, and then Yom Sabt is the last day. On the day of Sabt, or the day of the Sabbath, you're not allowed to work. That's the law in the Torah. You can pray and you can rest, but you cannot work. Prohibited. But Dajjal is released amongst these Christians in Constantinople. And as a consequence, he's able to misguide them. And on the day of the Sabbath, Allah tested them. This is a city which lives by fishing. And all through the week there is no fish. Allah restrains the fish from coming. But only on the day of the Sabbath all the fish come, because you are being tested. Will you be faithful to the law? Yes or no? And Dajjal is now at work, and he eventually corrupts them and gets them to abandon the law. We don't care 2 peanuts for the law, because we have the truth. Jesus is the truth, so why do we need the law? Yes. And so they stop obeying the law of the Sabbath. The law is that the male must be circumcised. If you don't know why, then ask the Lord. If you have more knowledge than the Lord himself, go ask him. That's the law. And our prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, was circumcised. You have a problem with that? And so Dajjal gets them to abandon circumcision, male circumcision. So now what he does is to get them to go fishing on the day of the Sabbath. We now are a Christian people who don't care 2 peanuts for the law. One part of the Christian people in Constantinople said, let's warn these Christian people who are abandoning the law of the consequences of their sinful conduct. But then another part of the Christian people say it's no use warning them. Don't bother, it's no use warning them. Allah then responded to a Christian people who were in Constantinople and who betrayed the truth and who abandoned the law and who went fishing on the day of the Sabbath. And he cursed them. He cursed them. And he declared, Kunu kiradatan khasi'in, be apes despised. And so a Christian people who were in Constantinople are now cursed to eventually live like apes. This eventually began when Constantinople broke into 2, or the Quran refers to it as Rome. One part of Rome, that part of Rome which is still blessed by Allah for a second victory, min qabl wa min ba'd. That part of Rome still strives to obey the law. They have not abandoned the law. They may not be obeying everything in the law, but they have not abandoned the law completely. But this part of Rome, which broke away and eventually brought into being modern, godless, secular, decadent, modern Western civilization, with a PhD in oppression and a PhD in deception and a mountain of lies, this part of the Christian world abandoned the law. This part of the law said, this part of the Christians said, we don't care 2 peanuts for the law anymore. We have the truth. And so this is the part of the Christian world who eventually, in consequence of being deceived and corrupted by Dajjal, will show the footprints of Dajjal, that they will live like apes. Kunu kiradatan khasi'in. A monkey does not wear clothing. A monkey is naked in public. But that's not strange, because that's his fitrah. That's his natural way. But when a human society begins to show a preference for public nakedness, you go to the beach and you see them 95% naked, and sometimes even more than that. You go to them on the streets of Port of Spain in Trinidad, where I live in carnival time, and some of them are 100% naked, using only body paint. When you see this preference for public nakedness, you know this is Monkey Town. That's right. And so this talk is entitled Dajjal and Monkey Town, except that when I went to Pakistan earlier this year, or was it last year, and they gave me a new term. Instead of Monkey Town, we called it Bandarabad. Yes, Bandarabad. Good to go have a little laugh. Monkeys have their bedroom life in public. But that's nothing disgraceful and shameful. But Allah says, Kunu kiradatan khasi'in. Be apes despised. So these are people who would eventually, because of Dajjal, would live a despicable way of life. So when you see people showing a preference for sexual relations in public, you know it's Monkey Town. It's Monkey Town. And so now we've given you yet another of the footprints of Dajjal, by which you would recognize that modern Western civilization, this is our eschatological analysis and explanation. Others may have different things to say. Our eschatological analysis and explanation is that modern Western civilization was created by the Antichrist to serve the Antichrist, and one of the proofs of this is that it's Monkey Town. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.